never called myself an influencer, but that could be because the word hadn't been invented at the time. But let's say I had a strong online reputation for a little while. It started off small. I was a waiter in London drawing cartoons of the people that I was attracted to, handsome, sexy butches. I called it a comic strip, 100 Butches, and I sent it to a lesbian UK magazine, and that moment changed everything. The magazine loved the concept, and so did their readers, including radio hosts and bloggers who promoted me on MySpace because this was the 2000s. That comic strip led to book deals and writing tours and keynote addresses and a Wikipedia entry. I was even honored with the title of the Trans Parade Marshal of Salt Lake City. Inside of the tiny world of cutie BIPOC comics, I'd become an influencer. This story starts well, but it gets twisted. I started introducing myself by saying, "My name is Elisha Lim and I'm a queer person of color." This intimate information about my race and my sexuality became the first thing that I would say to strangers to establish my authority and my brand. And gradually this made me cynical, because my identity is shorthand for my griefs and my struggles and my triumphs, but I became an expert at manipulating it for shares and likes. I started thinking about ways that it could help me win arguments and gain positive attention and shore up my brand. Gradually, my cutie BIPOC identity became my capital asset, and it even reached the stage that I only wanted to take Instagram selfies with other queer people of color. Unfortunately, this type of sordid strategizing probably isn't totally unfamiliar to you. When you apply to a school or a grant or a new job, there's, for a lot of us, that moment where you think about how you check off the boxes of the diversity mandate. And that used to be something we just think about a couple of times a year. But now on social media, it's something that you can think about every day as a quick shortcut to instant first-hand expertise. And if that gains you shares and likes, then for some of us, that means that we are soon limiting our selfies to other people who also check off the boxes, and then calling out people who we think shouldn't be checking off the boxes at all. Which is what I started to do. There was a petition that I wrote that successfully managed to get gay Canadian media to adopt the pronoun they. Woo! But at the time, there was a trans art duo who publicly refused to join me, and so I called them out. I wrote a passive-aggressive post about activists who just exploit their cis-passing privilege and bail on trans community whenever it serves them to avoid bad press. This was a popular post that gained me followers, and it probably hurt that duo, but I didn't care. I wasn't trying to connect with them. I was trying to establish my queer and trans expertise and authority. This self-branding drive came to distort everything. How I saw myself, how I saw my community, how I aspired to friendships and even lovers. And I wish I could say it was my choice to quit, but the truth is, I just became so paranoid and self-conscious and depressed that I burnt out. My story is just an example of a new norm that on social media marginalized issues have earned this special reverence that is tempting to exploit. At the time of writing this TED Talk, I Googled instantly 3 recent scandals. Number 1, a highly influential white Instagrammer named Queer Appalachia fundraised hundreds of thousands of dollars on behalf of queer and trans people of color, but a Washington Post expose revealed that they kept most of it. Number 2, the next day, a New York Times story revealed that a neuroscientist named Beth M. McLaughlin had invented a fake Twitter account. @SciencingBy was allegedly a queer indigenous scientist who conveniently came to her aid and defended her in high-profile Twitter disputes. And then when that account gained too many followers, it died of COVID. Number 3, a month later, Jessica Krug, a professor of African diaspora studies at George Washington University, publicly confessed that she was white and pretending to be black. This might have been to increase her credibility in academia or on social media, where she bullied racialized scholars for not being radical enough. And if you had any remaining doubt about opportunism around marginalized issues online, The final nail in the coffin probably came in June, after police murdered George Floyd, an unarmed black man, and that sparked a viral online movement. And on cue, notoriously anti black corporations like the NFL and Amazon tried to exploit that virality by broadcasting their own solidarity statements with Black Lives Matter. These are shameless examples of a new norm that treats marginalized identities as promotional opportunities. And while I am disturbed by fraudulent and hypocritical white people using our issues, I'm also concerned about us using our issues because it's generating dehumanizing contests and lateral violence inside of our communities. It takes names like call out culture or public shaming. I've watched members of my cutie BIPOC community get called out and excommunicated, and so many times I've thought, they deserve it. What is happening to me? What is happening to us? Social media incentivizes us to be cutthroat, and of all people, we need each other. This concern drives my PhD, and over time I've come to understand that this is not us. This is the side effect of a business model, and today I'm going to explain how it works. I could talk about any social media platform. This happens on Twitter and on TikTok, but I'm going to focus on Facebook because of its size. If you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook. If you're on WhatsApp, you're on Facebook. If you're on a third-party app with a Facebook sign-in, you're basically on Facebook. At this point, Facebook is more than a platform. It's a ubiquitous infrastructure that increasingly determines how we treat each other. So every day, Facebook makes us more receptive to identity politicking through two tools. It's Ad Manager and it's algorithms. This is Ad Manager. It is the keys to the kingdom. Advertisers flock to Ad Manager because it's cheap and easy to target customers according to razor-sharp specifics about their identity. As an example, I've made an ad targeting myself and people like me. From Ad Manager, I chose from drop-down menus and checked off the following boxes. North American, a strange category called friends of people who have engaged with Ramadan, people who use a Mac OS X operating system, have previously lived in Singapore, are likely to engage liberal political content, work as teaching assistants at the University of Toronto, are friends with women with birthdays in 0 to 7 days, have recently moved, are interested in barbecue, discount stores, Asian American culture, and free software. I could keep going, but I stopped here. And amazingly, I'm told that my selection is still fairly broad with a potential reach of 240 million. So after I've released my ad, I toggle over to data analytics to see how Asian liberal grad students with Muslim friends react to my ad, how much organic buzz they generate, if they encourage their friends to click on my ad. How do I know this? Because of culprit number 2, algorithms. So Facebook algorithms promote our posts according to signal, which is who we tend to interact with, prediction, which is the likely interest in our posts, and relevance. This is important. We think that the popularity of our posts is based on their likability, but these are advertising algorithms. The popularity of our posts is based on their likelihood to generate word-of-mouth marketing and brand awareness. Even the term influencer doesn't actually mean popular and glamorous. It comes from the market research concept of influentials, people labeled as the best marketing tools around. That's right. When I called myself an influencer, I was calling myself a tool. So, Ad Manager classifies us into groups using the ultimate game of checking off boxes, and then algorithms rank those groups in terms of most receptive to buying, clicking, and word-of-mouth marketing. We think of social media platforms as these social spaces where we connect with people, but they are commercial spaces that are finely calibrated to create the ultimate advertising atmosphere. In fact, if you've ever wanted to upload a post to get a lot of visibility, like to talk about your new job or your new degree or to come out as trans, you probably found yourself using the words of a sales pitch, because algorithms reward us when we act like commercials. And commercials don't thrive on mutual respect. They thrive on maximum buzz. So like when I wrote that post about the trans art duo, because it generated maximum buzz, Algorithms spread it far and wide and made it seem like the right way to act. As this becomes common sense, I don't blame anyone who leverages their identity for influence and power. I blame corporate advertising models and algorithms that are taking advantage of our desperation. Because we live in a nightmare of job precarity, massive personal debt, and the breakdown of our social security systems. And so, yes, we take the bait. We calculate the asset value of our identities and then allow ad-driven algorithms to dictate the right and wrong ways to perform them. I call this a transition from identity politics to identity economics. And I don't blame anyone who pays their rent this way. I blame the neoliberal drive to privatize our social lives. For this reason, I'm tired of mainstream concerns about Facebook. Gripping Netflix documentaries, anxious headlines, and whistleblowers warn us about privacy infractions and about surveillance, about misinformation, and the breakdown of democracy. My take is different because, unlike these voices, I'm not a rich, white Silicon Valley executive. I'm glad they stepped forward, but there are side effects that they are not seeing. Most of you are seeing them because, like me, we are the majority. People who are poor, or racialized, or queer, or sick, who turn to social media as a lifeline of career advancement and authority that we never previously had. We have come to feel morbidly worried about our reputations. We have come to feel worried about saying the wrong thing. We have come to feel socially anxious in the circles we used to feel welcome in. This is the painful crush of the social media machine, and we are the experts of its infrastructure. I'm not concerned about villainous corporations invading privacy because for many of us, privacy was a privilege we didn't have to begin with. I'm not concerned about the breakdown of democracy because for many of us, that democracy was already broken. As the middle class shrinks and the working class balloons, we are the majority. And my goal is to launch a different issue into a mainstream narrative dominated by the problems of a minority. I'm talking about the breakdown of our social ties at the grassroots level. These ties are dissolving into brooding social anxiety and lateral violence, and we need these ties. We inherited them from 1960s civil rights movements, from Black Power movements, from trans activism, from third world feminists who taught us to reclaim our social difference in the name of collective empowerment and the redistribution of our resources. Today, social media overwrites those lessons and trains us to reclaim our social differences in the name of self-promotion and personal branding. We need to teach each other radical algorithmic literacy, to harness algorithms, not to fight each other, but to fight our common enemies, our rent premiums, our precarious labor contracts, our huge personal debts, the privatization of our social security systems. In this regard, the North Star model is the hashtag defund the police. Black Lives Matter seized the moment of emotion around the murder of George Floyd to make concrete economic demands. In just 3 months, their hashtag had reallocated billions of dollars in police funding in the States to the basic needs of Black community, like food access, mental health support, abortion access, and violence prevention programs. It was strange and amazing to see trending topics include municipal budgets. Even if you just shared the hashtag, you were thinking about economic matters and class issues. BLM harnessed algorithms not for self-promotion, but to unite around the common needs of Black community. This is radical algorithmic literacy, using algorithms to help each other and not to help adversaries. This is my bottom line. Facebook has been associated with the problem of data privacy. It needs to be associated instead with the problem of data privatization. I'm talking about the trend of classifying our identities so much that we have come to think of our identities as brand properties that we need to protect. This is what I call identity economics, and it is not unlike an abusive lover. It flatters and promotes our most narcissistic, calculating, paranoid behaviors while isolating us from the people who could save us. This is the Facebook problem that needs the attention of curriculum and policy and newspaper headlines. This is the battle we know, and we need to fight.